some super bouts tonight. An Anglo-German confrontation for the European Cruiserweight Championship between Britain's Johnny Nelson, there he is, and the German Markus Bott. Nelson, who's already had one bid for a world title, which ended in a draw. He didn't do himself any favours at all that night. He's looking to rebuild his reputation, getting last-minute instructions there from manager Brendan Ingle. And Bott in the other corner, unbeaten in 10 fights, 7 of them by knockout. He's 28, 5 years older than Nelson. Referee is Signor Lorenzo Casatini from Italy. Big crowd here at the Europahalle in Karlsruhe, which is just a few miles from Bott's home at Pforzheim. So just about every man, woman and child, if there are any children in the audience, supporting Bott here. Hometown advantage. It's a big one in these European title fights. Due to go 12 rounds, Nelson, let me remind you, in the white shorts. And this could be the classic confrontation of styles. Nelson very much the jab and move kind of stylist. Bott known for his aggression, a bulldog of a fighter, so his reputation goes. Nelson landing with the first punch, that left jab. You'll see that Nelson has this advantage in reach and height. So Bott's problem is going to be to try and get inside. Little cautionary word there for holding for Nelson early on. Nelson, who's won 19 of his fights, lost 5 and drawn 1. But those 5 defeats all happened in his first 11 contests. He's been unbeaten since February 1988, and he's never been stopped. Bott there trying to rough him up at close quarters, and that's exactly the kind of fight that Bott wants. All the time it's at range, the advantage must be with Nelson. Nelson, fast, elusive, a typical Brendan Ingle stable boxer. Style rather reminiscent of that of his stablemate Harold Graham, who recently lost in a world title attempt at middleweight against Julian Jackson. Good sneak right there from Nelson, mixing up the punches well, and Bott looking a little bit befuddled by that. That's good boxing, but back comes Bott aggressively and got him with a couple of good solid left hooks of his own. This is a pretty good opening round. Often you get a very exploratory start to these fights with the two boxers looking to feel each other out. Not here. Straight into it, straight into gear. Bott, big support, chance for him from the back of the hall here. The promoter here, Peter Curl, hoping that Bott will win to spark a revival in German boxing. They haven't had too many big names burst through in the last few years. Bott is trained by one of their better boxers in recent times, the stylish former European lightweight champion René Vella. That's a good, again, a good sneak right from Nelson. He's got good, fast hands. And at the moment, Bott is having his problems slipping those punches. They're coming in so fast. Classic counter-punching from Johnny Nelson. Look at that, gloves held low, Ali style. You've got to have good reflexes if you want to carry out that kind of policy and make it work. But it suits Nelson in the same way that it suits Harold Graham. And there he is again with that jab. Bott rather walking onto the punches as he tries to mix it inside. And that was Nelson's first round. No question about it in my mind.
Meine Damen und Herren, liebe Boxsportfreunde, wir haben Informationen für die rote Ecke.
So the crowd here, a big one. The purse of the two boxers, by the way, Nelson is on £8,000 for his night's work. There he is, a check on his record. Started off by losing his first 3 professional fights, including a decision in Denmark against the current WBO champion Magna Havnar. And Bott there, who boxed pretty well as an amateur in the 84 and 88 Olympics. Indeed, in Seoul, Bott caused something of a sensation in the first bout by knocking out the fancied East German René Sertovius. But then he went out himself in his next bout. Bott, you'll notice, with a knee bandage on his left knee. Sometimes boxers use that kind of thing just to steady themselves. He walked onto another good right there from Nelson. Nelson has started impressively here, and Bott's style, I think, suits him. This walking into him, Bott trying to make the fight, but Nelson countering very effectively indeed in this opening round and a bit. Good defensive skills there, silky and elusive from Nelson, and then pumping out that jab and making Bott miss. Johnny Nelson, the British champion. He's won a Lonsdale bout outright in Britain, a prestigious bout and a very handsome one as well, which all boxers win if they're victorious in 3 British Championship contests. Nelson has now achieved that. Actually won the British title on the undercard of the famous Nigel Benn-Michael Watson fight when he knocked out Andy Strawn in 8 rounds. Every punch from Bott, every piece of aggression being cheered to the echo by this crowd. A hall packed with his fans, but he's got problems. And so it would seem in these opening couple of rounds, because he's walked onto quite a lot of punches from Nelson. Had the occasional success himself with the left hook. Oh, and that is a flash knockdown by the look of it. And he will take the mandatory 8 count. He was only down for a split second, and it didn't really look like any more than a jab that put him down, but he has to take the 8 count. So Bott on the floor, albeit very, very briefly, in round 2. I think that punch just caught him off balance more than anything else. It wasn't particularly powerful or anything like that. He's certainly not shaken up, and he's straight back into his work. Again, Nelson getting a little cautionary word from the referee about holding. And again, oh, that's good punching, good precision punching from Nelson. And Bott wants to cover up for a moment. Now he's the one lying on the ropes, and he's not the counter-puncher that Nelson is. Again, good, flashy, stylish work from the British Cruiserweight champion, Johnny Nelson from Sheffield. We can have a look again at this knockdown here, and there it is. Again, a little sneak punch from Nelson. There it is. Well, it was a better punch than I thought first time round. A little left hook picked him up on the way in, and it caught Bott right off balance. Nelson on my card. I don't know how the judges are scoring it. Has won both rounds so far. Round 3 then, for the European Cruiserweight title here in Karlsruhe, Germany. Nelson, let me remind you, in the white shorts, Bott in the red. Bott there trying to mix it up at close range. He's got a pretty fair knockout record so far, Bott. He's looking for the big punch that could maybe turn this around. Nelson, the sort of fighter who boxes on his reflex there, gloves is held low, and always the chance that he could be just caught by one. He's got to have his wits about him. Frankly, so far, Bott is being outboxed. Again there, you see him miss by a mile with that left hook. Nelson's reflexes are so fast. You can hear Brendan Ingle in the corner saying to Johnny Nelson, get your hands up when you're in that corner, which he does. Nice jab again there, on the move from Nelson. Stick and move, and then come in counter-punching and out again. Looks good so far. But of course, his stablemate Harold Graham was looking pretty good until he was knocked out by one punch from Julian Jackson in that recent world middleweight title fight. Bott always has the puncher's chance. Good left hook in there from Bott. He did find the target, but he hasn't done that often enough. The reach disadvantage for him is a big one. Nelson forever providing the mobile target, and you'll watch him circulating around the ring in a clockwise direction, in other words away from the left hook of Bott, which is his danger punch. He should never be circling in the other direction, that is into the punch. Again, good counter-punching from Nelson with fast, blurring hand speed. Nelson's been a bit quieter in this round, not thrown out quite so much. Bott still trying to take the fight to him and having the occasional success, like with those two jabs. Coming up then to the end of the third round. Interesting fight. Nelson in charge so far. Welcome back to Super Bouts, European Cruiserweight title fight at the Europahalle here in Karlsruhe, Germany. The hometown man, Markus Bott, down very briefly in the second round. He's wearing the red shorts. Johnny Nelson from Sheffield, England, in control at the moment. Bott, the man looking for the big punches. Nelson, fast, classic counter-punching style with gloves held low. Again there, Bott trying to turn it into a brawl, and Nelson needing all his reflexes to get out of that corner, but didn't he do it impressively? Bott actually has won the German heavyweight title, outpointing Manfred Jassmann, and he weighed only 13 stone that night, so well inside the cruiserweight limit, but winning as a heavy. Now what's happening here? Nelson just abandoning that little aggression, wanting Bott to come to him, and now Bott getting in with some good body punches, and the two boxers talking to each other in there. Few verbals. Fair old fight this. Much better than Nelson's fight against Carlos de Leon for the World Cruiserweight title. A real soporific affair that in Sheffield a year or so ago. And a lot of people rather unkindly remarked that it was one that should have been stopped to prevent the crowd from further punishment. Understand you might be getting a little bit of interference on vision. Hope that isn't spoiling your enjoyment too much. Nelson's a funny kind of fighter. He does tend to vary in mood from one performance to another. Sometimes he can be pretty boring in plain language, and other times he really does look rather special. And I think tonight we're seeing the rather special version. But Bott is a bit of a handful. He wants to turn it into a close quarter brawl. Nelson not letting him, but this isn't a bad round for Bott. He's made the pace. Nelson just breathing a little more heavier in this round and not doing quite so much. There we are, clubs him with the punch on the way in again. That was how Bott was down. That's a good right from Bott. Good right. Complains to the referee too that Nelson was using his head as the bell goes to end round 4, and I think Bott may well have done enough to just maybe take that one on the judges' scorecards. There's a check on his record, 28 years of age, only 10 fights so far. He was an amateur for a long, long time, Bott. Let's have a look again at some of the action in this fourth round. Bott trying to get in, and there's that right. To be fair to Nelson, he was swaying away from it at the time, so that would have certainly reduced the effect of the punch, but it was better work from Bott, and probably his best round yet.
Seconds out.
Fifth round coming up. Johnny Nelson looking here to become the 6th British boxer to currently hold a European title. The others being Lennox Lewis, Tom Collins, Pat Barrett, Paul Hodkinson and Pat Clinton. It's quite a array. It's good punching from Nelson. That was a good right. Bott saying, no, I'm not hurt. Come on, do it again, he says then, and he does. And this time Bott is caught off balance, and Nelson is encouraged by that. And Bott was shaken up a bit. Foolish, really, from the German. He went in for a bit of kidology after taking the first right, left himself open for the second one. Daft, really. Oh, and this is a good round for Nelson. There's another good-looking right thudding in, and Bott for once goes into reverse gear and tries to almost imitate Nelson's style. Gloves down by his hips, but it doesn't really quite seem to come off in the same way, does it? Well, Nelson has landed with a lot of good punches in this round. Brendan Ingle keeping up a constant dialogue from the corner. He's never short of a word or two, is Brendan. But he's done a fine job for boxing in Sheffield. And does a lot of work too to help out the kids around that area too, inviting them to the gym and putting a few wayward youngsters on the right tracks in life. Boxing could certainly do with a few more Brendan Ingles. And Bott again, getting in at close quarters. Nelson rather holding on, tying him up. The referee lets him get away with that, and he catches Bott with some impressive looking punches. Good hand speed, Nelson. Oh, and then he just was in danger of getting caught there. Left himself a bit open on the ropes. Head going in from Bott. And again, the referee chooses to warn Nelson for holding on, which he probably was doing, but there was certainly some head work in there from Bott, which went without comment from the referee, surprisingly. Bott coming in with a few jabs, but again, the counter punches back from Nelson. Good action-packed fight here in the Europahalle in Karlsruhe. Bott a real handful. And these are good punches from the German. Nelson, who dominated the first half of the round, coming back with one or two of his own, but there's been a good comeback in this round from Markus Bott. Bell goes to end the round. Bott came back into it pretty well in the second half.
Breathe, oxygen, oxygen.
There's Brendan Ingle, who I was talking about there, a grey-haired figure, giving Johnny Nelson his instructions.
Meine Damen und Herren, in dieser Runde erhielt Johnny Nelson eine Verwarnung wegen ständigem Halten.
Let's have a look at this bit of action here. This is an interesting round. There's that really good right, which almost had Bott down. He seemed to lose his legs for a split second, but managed to stay on his feet. And Nelson was dominating that round for 2 minutes. Bott came back quite well in the last minute of the round. Going for the uppercut. Those punches missed. That one didn't. Round 6 then. Bott, red trunks, Nelson, white. This cruiserweight division is comparatively new in boxing. It's only been a world title division for the last decade or so, at 13 stone 8 pounds, or 86 kilos if you prefer. Interesting to think that some famous fighters of old, like Rocky Marciano, Floyd Patterson, Henry Cooper, they'd have all been cruiserweights in the modern era. Bott again having one or two successes close in. That's where Nelson doesn't want him. Nelson has to keep poking out that jab and probably be first with it before Bott tees off with his next assault. The German scoring with the jab. Setting a very fast pace, Markus Bott. Nelson has to stay with it. Poking out those arrogant little jabs again. Nelson. Of course, it was Muhammad Ali who first started this hands by the hips style of boxing. But you've got to be good to do it. Getting a bit messy in the middle of this sixth round. Oh, that's a good left there. Bott was a mug for that one. Having to cover up on the ropes and covering up quite well, to be fair. And Nelson, though, ramming some of those punches through that guard. Nelson again with an impressive rally. Johnny Nelson is sharp and fast. There's no doubt about it, he's the classier of these two. Oh, and that's again a good right. Picking his punches well. Accurate clusters from the man from Sheffield. And Bott here is taking a bit of a pounding in this round, and he's not landed with much of his own. Big round this for Johnny Nelson, and we're coming up here to the halfway point in the fight. Excellent round for Nelson. He's ahead at the moment. There's no doubt about that. Join us again in just a minute. Welcome back to Super Bounce. There's Markus Bott from Pforzheim in Germany, going for this vacant European Cruiserweight title tonight against Britain's Johnny Nelson, who's been in charge so far with his fast counter-punching. Nelson in the white shorts, Bott in the red. And again, Nelson catching him with those good right hands at the start of the round. And Bott's work rate's begun to drop off over the last round or so. He can't afford to do that. He must keep the pressure, the heat on Nelson if he can. Try to get in close and rough him up, wear him down. Nelson's picking him off. Stick and jab again from Nelson. Occasionally just switching to southpaw there and leading with the right, just to try to bemuse his opponent even further. And again, catching him with the right there. Nelson looking well in control at this stage. On my scorecard of the first 6 rounds, I gave Nelson 4, 1 even and 1 to Bott. Just the one knockdown so far, a flash knockdown, Bott on the floor in the second round. Johnny Nelson is ranked number 4 in the world by the World Boxing Council. Bott is currently at number 19. So if the rankings are correct, it should be Nelson's victory here. The rankings, though, are, well, not very reliable, frankly. Again, an apology if you're having slight interference with your picture. And once again, I hope it isn't spoiling your enjoyment of what is a pretty absorbing fight here in Germany. Again, Nelson throwing those punches through the high-held guard of the German. At this stage of it, Bott looks as if he's beginning to run out of ideas a bit. Has That's a good right uppercut, though, from Bott, and a good right again. Nelson there couldn't slip that one. Nelson ducking, weaving, bobbing, ducking on those ropes all the time, swaying out of the range of some of them, riding some of them, but Bott getting through, and this is a sustained assault from the German. But I'm not really sure how many of those found their target. But Nelson wants to get off those ropes, really, as the bell goes to end the round. Excellent finish to the round from Bott. Just after I'd said he was looking a bit short of ideas, he came good in the last minute of the round, and these are some good head punches there. Certainly 3 went thudding in. Left hooks, right crosses. And Nelson started to get his wits about him a bit more, started to sway and make Bott miss a little bit more. But good finish to the round from Bott. After Nelson had had the first 2 minutes to himself, really. Maybe Bott just did enough in the last minute of the round there to have taken that one on the scorecards of the judges scoring at ringside. 3 of them. Again, Bott there, encouraged by his work in the last minute of round 7 and trying to turn up the temperature even more in this, the 8th. Not a lot in those punches from Nelson, just showboat punches, really. That's a good right from him, though. Nelson on his bike again, circling the edge of the ring and looking for the counter all the time. Still only 23 years of age, Johnny Nelson. So he could have a big, big future if he can add the European title to his British Championship here. He may not be far away from another world title attempt. But it'll have to be a lot better than his first one against De Leon. He's still trying to live that fight down. More performances like this, he'll do it. But Bott's style, quite honestly, is really made for Nelson. He's the counter-punching sort, so he likes fighters who are going to come on to him all the time. And Bott's certainly doing that. Nelson laying on the ropes, using his boxing skills there. That was clever. That was clever. He got in the right uppercut and made Bott miss with 3 or 4. What Nelson mustn't do is allow himself to drift into one of his negative phases. Picked off Bott on the way in again there with a right cross. Klaxons among the crowd as Nelson puts together another impressive cluster of head and body shots. Last few seconds of this 8th round, and unless the judges have been wearing masks, I think there's not a lot of doubt that this is Nelson's round. Bell goes to end it, and I score that round 10 points to Nelson, 9 to Bott. The scoring system, by the way, in these European Championship fights, as in world title fights, the winner of the round must win 10 points. And the loser would usually be awarded 9. If he lost the round emphatically, maybe 8. That's how they score it, if you'd like to score it along with us at home. Brendan Ingle chatting away there, telling Nelson to take deep breaths in the corner. And have a look at Bott there. You can see the sweat beads on his face. It's hard work under those lights and all the training and conditioning certainly comes into play in a big way as they really get into the home stretch now, coming up for the 9th round.
Seconds out.
There's René Vella there in the corner of Markus Bott. Bott on this mission to spark a revival in German boxing. That's how the German press have been talking about this one beforehand. A lot of his family and friends at ringside, hoping to see a glory night for the German. But boxing is not a sport that frankly has flourished in Germany in recent years. The East Germans, before the reunification, were good as amateurs. Again here, Bott trying to mix it up with Nelson in the corner. Nelson covering up well, and then turning Bott neatly. Bott getting his gloves up well as well. Nelson just taking a breather there, breathing a little heavier. Bott starting to put the pressure on him again. Got caught with one right uppercut in there by Bott, did Nelson. These are just little plaything punches really by Nelson, some of those there. He'll just poke out his jab just to keep Bott thinking, but he is whipping in some good right crosses as well and damaging head punches, and Bott is beginning to look a little puffy around the face at this stage. It's been particularly good with the right throughout this contest as Nelson. So he'll just poke out a few with nothing in them and then really step up the power almost. Good combinations again, that right again, and Bott looks confused and bewildered by that. The speed of the attack, the punches, some of them coming from crazy angles, beckoning Nelson into him. And there seems to be a bit of a cut under the left eye of Bott. Not sure how serious that is. Maybe we'll get a better view of it in a moment when the boxers turn round our way. Again caught with the right there. Some lovely boxing skills displayed in this contest by Johnny Nelson. As the bell goes to end the round, Bott going back to the corner. Nelson, if he can keep this going, the European Cruiserweight Championship would seem to be on its way, but it's not over yet. Welcome back to Super Bouts from Karlsruhe. The Europahalle here and a vacant European Cruiserweight Championship on the line. There's Markus Bott. He's got just a nick under his left eye, nothing serious at all, but his more serious problem is that he's quite a way behind on points, I would think, against this fellow, Johnny Nelson from Sheffield.
Seconds out.
Coming up then for the 10th round. 3 to go. Bott all the time trying to trap Nelson on those ropes and unload with the punches that have put away 7 of his 10 opponents. But Nelson has been fast and he's been elusive and he's counterpunched at times quite brilliantly here. So right uppercut. Bott slips almost nothing. Much better punch picking from Nelson. He streets ahead in boxing skills, but sometimes it's the slugger who comes out on top on grounds of power. But Nelson still looks nice and light on his feet. Caught by there the left hook from Markus Bott. This is a big step up in class for Bott, really. In recent fights, he's been knocking over some pretty inept opposition like Ricky Keller and David Butler from the States. And those two, with the greatest respect in the world, are very little more than travelling losers. Nelson, an ambitious young pro, looking to earn himself a second world title chance. And I think he has the skills to earn that chance too. Oh, that's a good right. Bott looked a little bit shaken by that. He's covering up and not throwing much back here, Bott. And I think he's got some problem with the vision there. He seemed to be dabbing away at the eye. I wonder if there's another little nick by the right eye. Nelson in almost arrogant control here at the start of the 10th round. Is Bott running out of gas? Very frustrating, of course, for a man who regards himself as the aggressive puncher to have thrown a lot of his best shots, missed with a lot of them, and even the ones he lands with, well, he still finds the other fellas standing up there in front of him. And in all honesty, Nelson, well, he might have been hurt once or twice, but he certainly hasn't been wobbled at all by Bott, even when the German has had his successes close in. This has been a good performance from Johnny Nelson so far, but he doesn't want to give it away in the closing stages as the bell goes to end round 10. Lots of aggression from Bott, but not very much success. There's that right from Nelson to the head, poking out the punches, and there was a stage in this round when Bott was really covering up and dabbing away at, I think, what he regarded as a cut by his right eye, but I don't think there's one there. He's getting a bit swollen around the eyes. There it was, that right. And I just wondered here whether Bott was almost giving out signals that he didn't want to know too much more, but he came back quite well and bravely. But he was certainly looking bemused.
Seconds out.
Again, Nelson's round, and I've got Nelson here way in front at this stage, at the 11th round coming up. Bott, I think it's fair to say, needs a knockout if he wants the European Cruiserweight Championship. But of course, you never know. He's the home man. The judges could be seeing things differently to me. That's my scorecard anyway. Oh, that's good again from Nelson. I like that hand speed in a boxer. It's always a sign of class. And again there. And Bott here is taking a fair bit, and less seems to be coming back. Though as I say that, it's almost as if he heard me. He says, oh, I'll show you. We can still dig deep. I can still find a bit more. Clubbing right, seemed to be thrown with the inside of the glove by Bott. Crowd at the back of the hall liked it, but the crowd have gone noticeably more silent as this has gone on, and Nelson's superiority has become ever more apparent. Nelson laying on the ropes, but throwing out a lot of good punches. Bott trying to rough him up. Crowd off their seats saying, go on, Markus, you can still do it. But they may be whistling in the dark, quite literally. Good little hooks to the head from Bott there off the ropes. He's still working very hard. He's still trying. Nelson's work rate just dropping off a bit in this 11th round. And Bott scores with the jab. Crowd responding at ringside. Some of them thinking that Bott's doing enough maybe to just take this round. Although they may be forgetting the first minute or so of it, in which Nelson was in big control. Bott's come back quite well again, though. And Nelson ending the round, still looking confident. Good right to finish it. 11 rounds gone, 1 to go. Can Markus Bott here produce the knockout which will turn this all around? Again, I understand you're just getting the odd blip in vision. Sorry about that. I understand it's nothing too bad. But a good fight, I think you'll agree here. Good clash of styles. They say styles make fights, and this has been good with Bott the aggressor, Nelson the counter-puncher. They're just working away at the little nick under the left eye of Markus Bott. Bott, who had 189 wins from 264 amateur contests. That's a long amateur career, and explains why he's only had 10 as a pro. Unbeaten so far, but that record could be about to go, unless he can come out with a storming finish and somehow pull this one from the fire. Start of the 12th and final round. On my scorecard, Nelson, the proverbial country mile ahead. Nelson in the white trunks, Bott in the red, and again, good clusters of punches. Good variety too from Johnny Nelson. Bott walking onto a lot now. Was that a slip? Looked like it to me. Now, what is the referee deciding here? Now, he's having a look at the eye. They're having a look again at that. It's got quite bad, that cut under the eye. It's getting quite deep. I would be amazed if they stopped that for a cut under the eye in the very last round. Certainly no blood flowing into the eye to obscure the vision. And this is an extraordinary long hold-up. The referee has managed to turn that almost into a minute's break. Caught again on the way in there, Bott. His head rocked back on his shoulders. Nelson will have been told by Brendan Ingle to just keep himself out of trouble in this last round. And there's a warning for Johnny Nelson for holding, and that's a point deducted. A point deducted for Johnny Nelson. Whether that would affect the decision here, presumably it goes the full distance, we shall have to see. I wouldn't have thought so, in all honesty. But that blood now is getting thick under that left eye, and pretty bad for Bott. And Nelson thumping in more punches, and Bott was in trouble. He's caught there. He was caught there, and he sagged back into the ropes, and if he didn't have the ropes behind him, he might well have gone down. Bott looks tired. He's still throwing at everything he can think of. It's a wild, desperate last assault from the German. Nelson laying on those ropes still, picking his punches pretty well. Bott thumping home body shots. Great finish here. Bott surviving the doctor's inspection. You have to admire the bravery and courage of the German. He's been outboxed fairly comprehensively most of the way here. He's walked onto a lot, but he's still coming forward. He's still trying to rescue it. He's been picked up by some hurtful punches, and Bott here looks gone. He looks gone, he's down. He's walked onto an awful lot, and look at the blood by the eye there. He's not got a lot left, and the referee stopped it. In the final round, the referee has stopped it, and Johnny Nelson from Sheffield, England, is the European Cruiserweight champion to add to his British title. But you have to admire the courage of Markus Bott. He must have known he was a long way behind on points going into that final round. And he threw so much at Nelson, or tried to, but in doing so, he just walked onto a barrage of punches. And there came a point where he simply had nothing at all left. And he ends the fight beaten and quite bloody as well underneath that left eye. Johnny Nelson totally unmarked, and this was an impressive performance from him. He must have worked to a game plan of counter-punching. Bott made to him, official announcements being made, and these were the punches that ended it all. Another right crashing through the guard, and Bott here has nothing at all left in the tank, no petrol there. Down he goes, and the referee, I think quite wisely, decided with 17 seconds to go, and Nelson probably a street ahead on points anyway. There was no point at all in letting Bott take any more. He had nothing left, and Nelson is a good winner of this European Cruiserweight title. He's starting to rebuild his reputation after that terrible, terrible performance against Carlos de Leon, when in, as they say in boxing terms, he stunk the place out and got a very bad press. But this was pretty good, and I think Nelson would give any boxer who wants to come on to him like that and be aggressive with him quite a lot of trouble, because he's a fast counter-puncher, and that was a classic performance of the art, really. Bott there looking fairly marked around the face. His first defeat in 11 contests, and at 28, well, he's going to have to rebuild a little bit. They would have hoped that maybe he could have won here and gone on for a world title shot, but that was not to be. Nelson was too good, too classy, and Nelson now will get the European Championship belt. Johnny Nelson, 23 years of age, WBC #4, and he may move up a bit as a result of that impressive performance. There he is with the rather flashy looking belt, if you can call it that. It's more like a life buoy, really, isn't it? I'd have trouble getting that through customs on the way home, but what it means is that Johnny Nelson is the Cruiserweight champion of Europe, and another world title attempt would beckon. Harold Graham there and Brendan Ingle. A great night for the Sheffield contingent. From us all in Karlsruhe, good night.